And this is the first Friday night prayer in the English language. It's new for me too, and I'm a little nervous because usually I do this in German and a mix of German and Arabic, so this is very new. And it's really nice to have so many of us here tonight. So, greetings to you all. And today I would like to take you along with me to an imaginary Damascus, between the ancient and the current Damascus, to tell you a story about giving. But first, verse 177 from Surah Al-Baqarah in English. Righteousness is not that you turn your faces towards the east or the west, but true righteousness is in one who believes in Allah, the last day, the angels, the book, and the prophets, and who gives wealth, in spite of their love for it, to relatives, to orphans, to the needy, the traveler, and those who ask for help, and gives his wealth for freeing slaves, and who establishes prayer and gives zakat, those who fulfill their promise when they promise, and those who are patient in poverty and hardship and during times of war. Those are the ones who have been true and righteous, and it is those who are the righteous. Damascus has always been a flourishing city of the East. If you were a Damascene, an inhabitant of Damascus, where they are from, they will most likely if you ask a Damascene, an inhabitant of Damascus, where they're from, they will most likely answer Min Sham, which is the ancient and still used colloquial name of the city, or the area. Due to its legendary aromatic scent, Damascus is also called the city of jasmine. It is one of the oldest continuously inhabited cities in the world. Its location along the caravan route from Africa, as well as the Chinese Silk Road, contributed to its prosperity. A city of traders and of artisans, it has always had a keen sense of pride in aesthetics, showing in the beauty of its edifices and the clothes of its inhabitants. People who say, I'm from Ana min Sham, I'm from Damascus, say it with pride. But as in every city, there are also the poor, who get only little share of what is so abundantly present, or was, anyway, before the war that followed the onset of the revolution in 2011. So one day, a long time ago, or maybe not so long ago, a man was sitting on the ground, in ragged clothes, selling little boxes of chewing gum to passers-by. A woman came by and said to him, I don't want to buy any of your chewing gum, but I was wondering if you could help me. One of my daughters will soon get married, and I have nothing to provide for her or the festivities. The man said that he was terribly sorry, but had nothing to give. But if she wanted, he would be glad to give her a little box of chewing gum. She took the gum and went on her way. The next day, the man did not sit down with the chewing gums, but went to see various people. First, he went to a man who sold clothes at the market. He confided to him that his daughters needed new dresses, but his little chewing gum boxes did not bring in enough money, so he had no more than today's value of maybe €1. The salesman responded with a sad no. He did not have anything to give away. But as the man with the chewing gums turned to leave, he remembered to say that he had some old clothes from last year he could give him for free. They needed some fixing and some mending, but weren't so bad. The chewing gum man took the clothes with gratitude and said, I have little to give, but would you like to take one of my little packages of chewing gum? Sure, said the market man, as he took the little box. The next person the chewing gum man visited was the baker. He had the most beautiful sweets on display. And even though the man knew he wouldn't be able to afford them, he spoke to the baker. "How much would I have to pay for a large tray of your beautifully arranged sweets?" he asked. The amount he heard was not only beyond what he could have paid, but also way beyond his expectations. "Could you give it to me for this?" he asked politely, as he presented his coin. The baker laughed. "No," he said scoldingly, and added that it was time for the men to leave the bakery. However, as the man turned to leave, the baker was moved by a certain feeling and said, "You know, I have some sweets from yesterday that I can give you. They're not quite as good as the ones from today, but they're certainly not too bad either." The man accepted the sweets with gratitude and asked, "Would you like a box of my chewing gum?" "Yes," replied the baker, and took it. Now the man went to the butcher, telling him that he needed at least 1 kilo of meat, but he had no more than this coin, which he presented to the butcher. The butcher wasn't half as patient as the baker. With very clear words, he sent him outside right away. However, a feeling of compassion spread inside the butcher, and before the next customer came, he called the man back, saying there had been a woman at the shop a while ago who had paid for a kilo of meat, saying the butcher should give it to any poor person who would come by. The story wasn't true. The butcher had in fact made it up in order not to embarrass the man. The man took the meat with gratitude, offering a package of chewing gum to the butcher, who said thank you and took it. Now all was accomplished. The man went to the woman whose daughter was to be married and gave her his collection of items. In tears, the woman thanked him. At last he asked her, "Would you like a box of my chewing gums?" "Yes," she said, as she took it. When the man got home that night to his villa outside the city, for he had a villa, he washed and perfumed himself, combed his disheveled hair, and put on a good suit to visit his friends. After an enjoyable evening, the rich man went back home, where he sat down to take a few boxes of chewing gum out of his cabinet, opened them, and did what he did every night. Carefully, he placed something inside each box before closing it up again. Then he placed them onto the shelf by the door, in order not to forget to take them along with him the next day. This something he had placed inside the little boxes was round and shiny, and a piece of gold. The other day I heard a sheikh say in a khutba that the fear of Allah was the beginning of all wisdom. He was saying that it was taqwa, a certain way to guard oneself from wrongdoing that would make the world a better place. And taqwa, which he called fear, would be the obedience to all rules and laws for fear of God's punishment. I hear this beautiful story about giving from one's heart, but I hear nothing, not a word, about fear. Instead, I hear that the wisdom about what we have to do to make the world a better place does not come from fear, but from love. Taqwa, which is mentioned over 80 times in the Quran, in some grammatical form or another, is not at all the fear of God, but the love of God, or at least the awareness that there is a God. A clear knowledge that there is a God and that he, she, it is loving and caring, and that we are to be likewise. That is taqwa. What I also find in this story is the certainty that doing good will be rewarded in some way or another. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ gave us his example of being good. He is said to have been compassionate, gentle, and generous at all times, and to all people, even his enemies. We are called to be his successors, in Arabic his Khalifa, but his human caliphate, as Ludwig Mohammed Zayed calls it, which on earth, because earth no longer needs a Khalifa in person to guide it, but is guided by the knowledge and love we as humanity have acquired up to now. We know what earth needs. We know what people need. Nobody wants to be hungry, so we know it is good to feed others. Nobody wants to be cold, so we know it is good to give shelter. Nobody wants to walk around in ragged clothes, so it is good to pass on what we have, take care of others' needs, to have a social system that provides the necessities to live a dignified life. But it is also psychologically true that nobody can give endlessly without receiving. We learn to say thank you because there needs to be a balance between giving and taking, an acknowledgement of some sort. Not that we act charitably in order to receive the gratitude. That's not the goal. Not that we say, oh, there has to be something in it for me as well. That is something different. But we like to see it as in some form of a balance. We are assured through the Quran that this balance is always guaranteed, even if there is no direct response, and the return for helping others is always gold, pure gold. In the Quran, this reward, this gold, is described as a paradise with rivers and cushions and beauty. What is your pure gold? What is your reward for being a good person? For me, pure gold is when a person tells me a story. The other day, a friend of mine who's quite poor told me a story. While walking, we saw all these shiny cars, handsomely dressed people. None of this seemed appealing at all. My pure gold, instead, was the story which I was being told. For me, pure gold is when somebody succeeds in an exam because I motivated him or her. Maybe I put in time to tutor that person, to explain in more simple language the complicated matter, and the person passes the exam and can now find a better job. This is pure gold for me. Or is your pure gold when somebody gives you a hug of love or looks into your eyes and listens to your story? Pure gold is when the evening sky turns into a purple red ocean of divine presence. A smile can be pure gold. An acknowledgement of your intelligence or beauty can be pure gold. Or a handshake or a gentle pat on the arm. We need to be wise. Pure gold for us does not come in the shape of round and shiny coins. This is only an allegory for our simple and sometimes childlike minds. It comes instead in ways we have to learn to see. So what is your pure gold? Yours. What are the experiences that render you joyful and happy and that you can see as rewards? There's a short anecdote about a married couple who came to couple therapy because they were so frustrated about the course their marriage had taken. The gold they received from their respective partner did not match their expectations. As they sat with the therapist, the woman said, "In all those years, you never bought me any flowers." The baffled man replied, "But I brought coffee to your bed every morning." While yes, it would have been nice if he had noticed her wish for flowers, it would have made her life so much more fulfilled to realize that the coffee was the sign of love he was able to give. We can only give what we have, or what makes sense for us to give. And hopefully others realize that what we are giving or have given is our gold. Once we see all the gold we are given, the richness we have inside can manifest itself in our encounters with others in many forms, in the form of a smile or an attentive ear in a conversation, and many other forms. What we give always leaves a trace behind. It is what people will remember. I'm always amazed that we remember to this day that Pharaoh's wife or daughter, stories vary among the religions, took little baby Musa out of the Nile River, where he would have surely perished, to take him with her and care for him. Acts of mercy are forever remembered and leave a trace for others to see and to follow. Acts of kindness are always gold. We will now listen to the Iqama and then pray our Friday prayer, our Friday night prayer, as believers have been doing throughout the world for centuries. We connect ourselves with Allah, the source of all and everything, in a timeless and endless universe, a source that is outside of us and inside of us, and embraces us in all our being with love and mercy. It wishes for us to do likewise and be likewise to one another. As the verses in the prayer, I will use today Surah Al-Kawthar, and I don't have a translation here in English, and Al-Zalzal. So I can translate Al-Zalzal. Surah Al-Zalzal. When the earth is shaken with this final earthquake, or her final earthquake, and the earth discharges her burdens, and humans say, "What does she have?" That day, earth will tell all her knowledge, all her news, because God has commanded it so. That day, people will be separated into categories like moths and be shown the results of their deeds. And whoever has done an atom's weight of good will see it, and whoever has done an atom's weight of bad will see it also.